Hello there. You're listening to Manufacturing Tomorrow, brought to you by the Ohio Manufacturing Institute at The Ohio State University, where we discuss the latest innovations, challenges, and advancements shaping the world of manufacturing. I'm your host, Catherine Kelly. Today, we are excited to speak with Michael Lefenfeld, President and CEO and Chair of the Board of Hexion Incorporated. Hexion is a global leader in adhesives and performance materials, headquartered right here in Columbus, Ohio. Michael joined the company in January 2023, and since then, he's been steering a bold transformation, shifting Hexion into an AI-first, technology-driven materials powerhouse. He's bringing artificial intelligence and advanced analytics into the heart of the company's work, from manufacturing to supply chain to research and development. Previously, Michael served as president and CEO of Cyanco, the world's largest maker of the materials used to pull gold and silver from the earth. Before that, he ran SiGNa Chemistry, guiding a global team that produced reactive metal materials for the oil and gas industry, petrochemicals, and emerging energy technologies. He's also an entrepreneur at heart, founding Alkami Consulting Group and launching Blood Gas Diagnostics. Michael holds more than 100 patents and patent applications and was honored as a young global leader by the World Economic Forum in 2016. He also led SiGNa Chemistry to earn the EPA's prestigious Presidential Green Chemistry Award. Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Catherine. This has been great.
Would you describe to our listeners the range of adhesives and performance materials that Hexion manufactures?
So Hexion is one of those companies that nobody knows they're interacting with almost every day. So we make the adhesives that hold the wood panels that construct your house together. We make the coatings and the paints and parts of those components that go in your automotive vehicles every day. We make materials that are used to produce your food, to produce the natural gas that gets consumed in your home, the minerals that that interact in your in your electronics every day. So we touch pretty much everybody across the world every day, but nobody knows we're there. And that's not necessarily a bad thing at all times, but we make sure we deliver the best product to every customer because we know that it impacts everybody's home, everybody's family, and everybody's every day.
You've led Hexion through a major shift toward AI-driven operations and sustainable materials. What business needs and operational pain points did you witness that compelled you to prioritize AI in the manufacturing operations?
Look, AI is an enabler. So we look at AI as an HR function, not as a IT function. So if you think of anybody in any job, any class, any role, there are people that are great at their job. There are people that are not so good at their job. And then there's that standard deviation average of people that are good enough at their job. And we look at AI as an enabler to make everybody the best at their job, right? It can make them, in the simplistic, it can make them better writers. It can make them better mathematicians. It can make them better data, calculators. It enables people to do things at the best rate with help, along the way. We don't look at help as an obstacle. We don't look at that as a deficiency for people. When you go to the doctor, you want the doctor to use every technique they have to diagnose any problem you have in your body to make sure you're healthy and fit to go every day. And we look at AI the same way. We want you using it to make sure that you're doing the best job you can do in everything that we try and make Hexion exceptional in the world. And that's how we lead with that transformation.
How did you build the organizational foundation to make this shift stick?
I'm not going to say I'm not the easiest CEO. I tell our people you have to be kind of a glutton for punishment to work for me. And the reason for that is not because I'm mean or I yell or I scream or any of that, but I think in everything we do, the only acceptable goal is perfection. We need to strive for perfection in everything we do, but we have to know that you're never going to achieve it because perfect all the time, every time is just not possible. computers, people, they're all fallible in some way, shape, or form. Everything can break. So for me, that's really setting the expectation within the organization as a constant. We will reach for the highest rung, and when we get there, we're going to raise the bar again to achieve even further accolades than we can. We continually upskill our people. If they want training, if they want coaching, if they want help in anything, we pay for that and we provide those services on a regular basis. And look, if people don't align with that, we transition them and help them to find their next goal and their next place in life. And we make sure that we're bringing in bold and inventive and ideative leaders to make sure that they're challenging the status quo. It's okay to break things at Hexion. It's okay to fail at Hexion. We want people that are willing to learn from those mistakes, apply them so that we can always be better in what we're doing, even in the most simplest tasks.
Let's get into detail. When you say AI first, what does that look like for a plant manager on a Tuesday morning?
Look, AI it's a lot of different things. We use AI to compute massive amounts of data. As you can imagine, in any manufacturing operation, you have a control system, and that control system has blinking lights and trend lines and alarms and all the different readouts that you have in a very systemized and system employed and sensor employed production line. No human being can consume all that data all the time. What we usually do is we print out those reports and we put them in binders, and we put those binders on a shelf and they collect dust. What we do is we ask our teams to enable AI-based systems in a lot of different ways, and let those systems learn from that data consistently in a way that a human brain cannot do on a everyday, consistent, 24/7, 365 basis. And we use that AI to then make recommendations and make changes to our process so that we're always at the optimized level for us and for our customers. Because we now, with the acquisition of SmartTech, that was an AI-based systems company that we install AI overlayers in our customers' unit operations, that now informs our products to be the best relationship to what they're doing every day, so that we have that synergy in alignment differentiated from anybody else in the world. And that's really what makes Hexion exceptional, and that's what our manufacturing plants really utilize.
Where have you seen the biggest operational gains? Has it been the predictive maintenance, process optimization, energy management?
The answer is yes. I couldn't tell you where we've seen the most gains because we've seen so many gains. Hexion's not we're not using AI just for, an advanced Google, prompt search, right? We're using AI to really consume the data that we're utilizing. We're a 150-year-old company, right? So there's a lot of historical information that we're bringing to the forefront again through the learned models and through the learned agents. And then we're also doing it through allowing us to allow predictive maintenance, predictive operation, and ultimately predictive resins, the adhesives that we make, so that they are cutting edge and using the least amount of waste, the least amount of materials, so that everybody is getting the best, most sustainable deliverable without having to add extra costs to the process, right? People are real excited about using sustainable, renewable resources, but the problem is if they cost more money, it's hard to make that change and compete in the world. We want to make sure that we can provide all of these, sustainable, variables forward, and make sure that we can do it at a cost competitive to any other product in the market.
Well, when you're talking about a 150-year-old company, you're talking about legacy systems. And so how do you overcome challenges with data integration?
Look, I'm a very big believer that, a lot of people try and take AI and put it as an overlayer to their ordinary processes that have been in existence for those 100 years, right? That have had tweaks and turns and lefts and rights. I'm a very big believer that you should break everything and then rebuild it for what you are today, what technology exists in the present, and then how AI can then attack those and make those processes even better and more streamlined. So there's a lot of breaking and putting things back together at Hexion, even when it comes to simple things, HR, finance, things that are a little more back office standard, process, all the way to things of how we make product and how we do research, and all of those things all play a role. So, and we use it in learning, we use it in talent strategy. Everything is, has an AI layer to it.
Hexion is investing in bio-based chemistry and lignin adhesives. What operational hurdles must be overcome to scale those innovations?
Well, that goes back to the cost basis, right? So
Okay.
those renewable products are not, they're not ubiquitous within the supply chain of an organization. But if it drives better properties, or it drives better composition, or better, or better use cases, some extra cost is possible. But because companies like Hexion are so large, we make billions, that's with a B, billions of pounds of product a year, right? Some of our products, and multi-billions of pounds. With that, it doesn't take a whole lot of introduction to our products to get to very large scales to get costs out of those systems. So there are hurdles to doing it on the availability, but once you build that partnership, and Hexion partners with all of its suppliers, all of its vendors, and all of our customers, to make sure that we can alleviate some of those obstacles as quickly as possible.
You mentioned sustainability. How do sustainability metrics influence your product development and manufacturing decisions?
Look, sustainability it's critical, right? In our raw materials, in the energy we use at our plants, in our customers, right? How much, they have, when a wood panel is made, so an OSB board or a plywood board, they start, way, way thicker than what you see on the, when you go to Home Depot and see an OSB board against a wall. They use heat and pressure and our resins, our glues, to basically stick in place. So you've got to think about the amount of energy and heat that has to transfer through wood to make sure all the glue sticks, and the pressure that forms it. So all of those things are from carbon sourced materials. The wood itself as well. You want to make sure you're not using more trees than you have to. So going back to our AI enables the best consumption of those variables, wood, energy, so that the carbon footprint is low, and those carbon savings happen and can be, ultimately economically, positive for the industrial use. So, in R&D, we're looking at everything, right? We're looking at raw materials and how they're made and how they're built. We're looking at low carbon starting materials. There's nothing that we don't look at that is better for the world, which makes it better for Hexion.
And what role does AI play in that?
Every bit of it, right? Because AI helps the design, it helps the use, it helps the supply chain to get it to our plants. We have dozens of plants around the world, and everything has to get there, right? Because not everything is made in the local environment to your manufacturing plant. We tend to build our manufacturing plants closer to our customers, our partners, than to our raw material supply. But wood being the biggest raw material supply for them, they tend to position themselves close to their forests. So there's a bit of AI that can optimize a lot of those things, if it's used properly and really pulling on the information. And AI can also be used in customer growth, right? There's ways to mine what's needed in the world, where the white space is to play. There's also ways of seeing what customers are looking for through their reports and through their K1s if they're public, all that type of stuff. So we use AI in a lot of different ways for market intelligence, competitive intelligence, product intelligence, you name it.
Looking ahead, what emerging technologies, whether it's digital twins, although I think that's been developing for quite some time, generative design, what technologies do you see shaping manufacturing in the next 3 to 5 years?
Look, I think all of those things that you mentioned are part of the solution. I think the world of general products is maybe starting to wane a little bit. I think things are going to be much more personalized. So the best example of this, instead of going into my own market, will be personalized medicine, right? We understand the genome, we understand the microbiome, we understand all these things, so we can target medications more specifically to people and to their metabolisms and to their body absorptions and to their DNA, and RNA, capability. So you look at it as, take something like that we've talked about and is always cutting edge, and Nobel Prizes are awarded for that. And you can apply that type of creativity and specificity to the everyday, even in the most mundane manufacturing practices. And that's where I really think the world is going to go. And data drives that, right? Having the data at your customer, or having the data realizable and attainable from your know-how of the many years everybody's been making their products, and bringing those together makes a very differentiated capability to deliver solutions to customers around the world. And that's really what we try and do.
If you could give one piece of advice to manufacturers about preparing for AI, what would it be?
I will tell everybody, I'm a very big believer that pretty much most decisions in business, not all, but most decisions in business are reversible decisions. You have to figure out the cost of that reversibility. It's usually time or money, and it's not usually a lot of those. But if you can afford that, I would tell them to stop doing all the analysis and all the work, the prep work, and just walk through the door. If it doesn't work, you'll have learned something, and you'll put Humpty Dumpty back together again in a better way. Because you'll use those learnings to make sure that you're using the optimal solution for what you learned. Now, you have to kill a project when it dies. You can't just keep making it a pet project that comes back to life, but you need to take the learnings from the trying and apply it to the system. So I would tell you that really, in transformational work where AI inclusion in a business is transformational, you have to think about that from a cultural perspective, that you have to reward that trying.
Well said. Thank you, Michael, for taking time to be on our podcast. This was really fascinating. So I appreciate it.
No, thank you so much. This is wonderful. I really appreciate the questions and telling people more about Hexion. And because you're based out of Columbus, Ohio, if people are looking to get involved in this, we're always hiring. So we're looking for the best and the brightest and the most willing to experiment and fail and learn to go forward. So we hope that gets out there.
All right. Well, I think it will. Thank you.
Thank you.